My name is Jean, and this is Michael, and we are two of about 40 friends of Corcoran Lagoon Beach. And this is the first time we've ever done a presentation like this, so I'd like to thank Brenda and the library staff who actually contacted us and asked us if we would do this tonight after seeing how well the shorebird photo exhibit at the Live Oak Library is met with such good favor. This is our 4th year to do that exhibit every year, and the librarian at that library says that it is the favorite exhibit of all exhibits in that library. So we'll see a few pictures a little bit later on. So since this is our first time doing this presentation, you'll have to bear with me if I'm not going to make any mistakes. I'm really good at this, so Michael is going to work the button to forward. And we have a lot of information to share with you and a lot of pictures to share with you. And we hope it's going to be enjoyable. There are 3 chairs up front. If anyone can't see, I'll try to not stand in front of the screen too much. Okay, we are friends of Corcoran Lagoon Beach. There's also Corcoran Lagoon, and we'll explain how we happen to be talking about both tonight. How did we get started? About 5 years ago, some of us who like to go to Corcoran Lagoon Beach, who like to see Corcoran Lagoon, and a few people who actually live nearby, recognized that that beach, which we call Corcoran Lagoon Beach, is an urban beach. And we were trying to figure out how can we coexist, how can we humans coexist with wildlife who also call that beach and that environment and that what we would call ecosystem or biosystem home. So we were trying to figure out how do you do that? And we wanted to know, we were also concerned, I don't know, how many of you have actually gone out East Cliff Drive and gone to that beach, Corcoran Lagoon Beach, where you enter it? Okay, good. Then you know that it's a fairly shabby entrance. And there's nobody from County Public Works or County Parks Department to defend themselves, but it is pretty clear. That's right, you are. It sort of looked like the stepchild of parks. It is a county beach and therefore called a county park. But the signage was in dismal shape. There were old wheelie bins for garbage. Anyway, we were trying to think about maybe there was something we could do to help the county take care of that. So we formed an informal Friends of Corcoran Lagoon Beach. We're not a nonprofit. We didn't want to spend all of our time raising money and doing the housekeeping that a nonprofit organization is required. So, in developing our goals, oh, that worked well. Our first goal of our organization is to upgrade the physical infrastructure of the park entrance. And we've done a couple of things, and I'll tell you about that later. The next goal, preserve and protect wildlife habitat, because if we preserve and protect wildlife habitat, then we're doing the same thing for the wildlife and all forms of life, floral and faunal, on that habitat. We also wanted to encourage educational field trips. We worked with, started to work with the schools to try and get schools to come out and bring children out, school kids, to see the beach and the lagoon. And that's another reason why we started doing the library exhibit, because that was a really good educational exhibit. And then last but not least, we wanted to figure out if we could facilitate some funding for the county to do some of the things that we thought might spruce up the entrance, but that they didn't have the money. And at the time when we formed, we didn't even have a director of county parks. The county had to let the director go, and it was all under Public Works, which is a wonderful department, but county parks didn't have a real director. They got one 2 years ago. glad to say. Okay, so here's the setting. This is I love this slide because if you're out in the ocean, but you can see the radio station, you can see the whole lagoon. This is East Cliff Drive that currently bifurcates this one living system. The lagoon outflow, it never stays put. It tends to, well, you know, nature, waterways meander. Only people make straight roads. The natural world does meandering. And then here's the ocean. These apartments were pre-California Coastal Act. That means they were built before 1972. Had we had a California Coastal Act prior to this, they probably wouldn't be there. But this gives you a sense of the whole system. The water is the watershed of Rodeo Creek Gulch. Okay, so Rodeo Creek eventually comes out right here. And so this is Corcoran Lagoon Beach, Corcoran Lagoon. Okay, next slide. And sometimes the lagoon, which you saw in the last picture, will meander, and at other times it'll fill almost the entire beach. Okay, next slide. It's a birdie beach. And all of these birds that you see here on the shoreline, at some point in time are also in the lagoon. The water is their world, and so they follow the water. Next slide. People have asked before at the library, always asked, who owns Corcoran Lagoon? So we did some research. This is taken off the Santa Cruz County GIS map. It's online, anybody can see it. And as you'll notice, the lagoon has many property owners. These are residential areas here, F, and these residents, their property actually goes out into the middle of the lagoon. Okay. H this is a private camp. I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a church up here in the corner, that's theirs. G, this is a commons. We don't know what that means, that's what it says on the county's website, a commons. E, here's the Santa Cruz Live Oak Library, and this property belongs to the library.
Actually, it belongs to the county.
Belongs to the county, yes. Oh, that's true. It belongs to the county, as does the building, the library, the Live Oak Library building. Remember that all of the buildings, all of the branches in the library actually belong to the government entity in which they're located. Scotts Valley owns the building, the Scotts Valley Library building. The county owns the Live Oak building. Capitola owns the Capitola building. So, yeah, we like to think of it as the libraries, but you're right. It is the county.
The library is on what side of Portola?
Yeah, no, the library is, oh yes, right there. I'm sorry, yes.
That's better.
And then, let's see, C, this C is KSEO radio stations. One of the reasons that we did this for the librarian at the Live Oak Library, she said people were coming in and saying, doesn't the radio station own the whole lagoon? And we were curious about that, and so we thought, well, that's a good question, and then we came up with the answer. So A and E, no, A and C are KSCOs. And D, yes. All of these slides, by the way, that you're seeing tonight, everything that you're seeing here is taken from our website. So that if you're curious about anything that you've seen tonight, you can always go to our website. I'll tell you how to get there real easily later on. Now, who owns Corcoran Lagoon Beach? Okay, remember, here's East Cliff Drive. The beach is owned by, this is I, a church. J has this funny piece here called J, has what's called no APN number. Basically, it's not owned, there is no ownership on that, except that the county of Santa Cruz owns everything 3 miles out beyond the high, is it the high tide line? Yeah, the mean high tide line out 3 miles into the ocean belongs to the county. So we could say that this is county owned. Okay. This is actually owned, and this is the county park. Okay. And L is county parks. M is private property. And it's, we don't have, all we know is it's private property. We don't know who owns it. We don't have their name and their address, but it's private property. So even the beach itself has a diversity of ownership. But basically, everything that you see comes under certain state and federal laws and local laws in terms of how it is managed, whether it's owned by a private individual, whether it's owned by the county, whether it's owned by a church. There's an umbrella of management prescriptions that have to be followed. Yes?
What's A in this document?
A?
KSCO.
Oh, that's K,
KSCO.
yeah, KSCO.
What are the pink splotched?
The pink,
Yeah.
you know, I don't remember, what is that pink, Michael?
I don't remember, what some designation for which map unit it is on the GIS map. Doesn't really tell us anything about it.
When you go to that GIS website, it's not the most user-friendly. There's all kinds of stuff on there that's difficult to deal with, and it jumps on the page from you, and so, yeah. Any other questions? Ownership, okay. Now, one last thing. The reason we have this up, that little tidewater goby, by the way, is not a big fish. Tiny little fish. But the last boundary that you should know about is this yellow boundary. And as you can see, it takes in the entire lagoon and the entire beach and actually out off the sand. This is the federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife boundary that designated everything within that yellow line as critical habitat for the endangered tidewater goby. And the reason that we'll come back to this, and this is important, is because in terms of the way this lagoon functions, there are some really good reasons biologically why it's good for the tidewater goby. Okay. So let's look at some pretty pictures.
Yes.
And we've got, when we say wildlife habitat, again, we're not just talking about the animals, but the place where they live, all of it. Everything's hitched to everything else. But there are some beautiful birds. And I will say that all of the pictures that you see are all pictures that have been taken by non-professional people who love birds, who happen to be down on the beach or near the lagoon at the right time, sent us their pictures, and Michael, our webmaster, put them on the website. So if you like a lot of pictures you're going to see, you'll want to go to the website because we couldn't put them all up tonight. Yeah, and it's a real slideshow. So go ahead and let's just show them some. Well, we have California pelicans. There are both snowy and great egrets.
What is that one on the left?
California pelicans. Yeah. And snowy and great egrets, marbled godwits. Are there any birders in the audience? Oh, goody. So if I make a mistake, feel free to correct me on my species, okay? Marbled godwit. Everybody loves the Canada goose and the little goslings. Okay. Kingfishers. It's not just shorebirds who call Corcoran Lagoon and Corcoran Lagoon Beach their home. Peregrine falcon loves the little birdies, okay? And so that's part of nature. Great blue herons, looking at these buddies out in the, some of these are just, you just have to be there at the right time. I mean, these look to be, they're really professional. Okay, this is a green heron. This particular picture was taken, all of these pictures are either taken at the seashore, in the outflow on the beach, or on the other side of East Cliff Drive in the inner lagoon, okay? That wherever the water is, that's where the birds are. We have some more shorebirds there by the seashore. You know, this one,
Willis.
yeah. Well, this one's a willet, this one's a willet to me, but this is a shorter bill, and I'm not sure about that. That's okay. Caspian tern, this is oops, let's go back to the tern for a minute.
One
This
good
is a
turn
little-
deserves another.
Yeah, one good tern.
Caspian tern.
These Caspian, this is some mating behavior. Isn't that sweet? He's offering her a fish. She ignored him. Next. That's a lesser yellow legs.
Correct.
Now, I want to hold on these two for just a minute, Michael. This is, no, go back. I mean, go forward, yeah. This is a black turnstone, and I can't remember if these are surf birds or what kind of little shorebirds they are.
Sandbar.
But what I want you to notice is where they're standing, because there's one more besides the lagoon, besides the outflow waters, besides the beach, and besides just in the shoreline, there are the exposed tide pools that are exposed both, when I had the picture of the whole beach, to the west side and to the east side. And these birds love the munchies that they find in the tide pools. So, go ahead. Some of these little munchies are found, and go ahead, one more slide. These are the kinds of things that are found in the tide pools that are extremely fragile. What you're seeing are shells and things that have collected around here. But there are little crustaceans. There's food for wildlife in here. And this is why when you're out on the beach and near the tide pools, it's really important to either step gingerly or not step at all. Because what you're doing is you're walking on somebody's dining room table. And that sort of destroys the meal. Go ahead, let's do another one. Now, just so you think we're just focusing on birds tonight, there's other things. There's other kinds of species that call Corcoran Lagoon, the beach, and the shoreline their home. This is a blue darner, and they love the inner lagoon. You know, there's probably, I'm going to guess, there's probably at least 10 to 12 species of dragonflies. But this is the picture that we got, and it's the prettiest one. This is a little crab, and it may be my favorite from my school days, Pachyrapsis crassipes. I love to say that. And then, not only do we have wildlife, like the little killdeer, but there are plants. This is our Boronia umulata, this Boronia. Let's do another, do you have another Boronia picture? Oh, there we, yeah, see all the birds like it. This holds the sand dunes in place. It's a native, it's a California native. It's very important, and it actually grows right on the beach in the shorebird nesting designated area in the county park beach. Okay.
Purple fish.
What's the bird?
Yeah, it's whole. Question?
I was wondering what that bird was.
Oh,
Go back.
want to go back to the,
There.
okay.
That one.
Purple fish.
Well,
Finch.
it's just a little house, it's a male house finch,
No,
I
it's
think.
purple finch.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Purple finch?
Yeah.
Male purple? Remember, it's not purple. Very good. We'll make sure that we check on our website to see that we have correctly identified that one. Again, we're not ornithologists. We're not, well, we're somewhat scientists by training, but different fields. Michael's an archaeologist, and I'm a biologist, which is a generalist. So I don't know all my birds. Okay. And please feel free at any time if you have a question to raise your hand. Yes?
Hello. No disrespect to your presentation for being absent for a few moments. I'll be throughout. My question is this. since you do have both of you have a professional level of understanding in regards to wildlife here in this county, correct?
Does this have to do with our
Yeah, well-
slideshow tonight?
What familiarity do either of you have with a creature known as the Santa Cruz Mountain fox, if any at all?
This is about
This is
Corcoran
about
Lagoon Beach.
Corcoran Lagoon, yeah. So if you could hold your questions about, other than Corcoran Lagoon until later, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your patience.
The other, we really got started in terms of looking at birds and habitat because we were watching killdeer nest on the beach. And we found that quite amazing. And they would just lay their eggs right on the beach. Smart birds. They lay them anywhere. They'll lay them in railroad tracks, killdeers will. But this is what got us mostly interested in how is this habitat for these birds? Go ahead, Michael. And then, and these are little babies. And so we watched the nesting season and studied the nesting season of the killdeer. Again, we're now in our 5th year of seeing that. They're cute. The plover type birds are really neat. They're known as fuzzy golf balls on sticks. Now there's another plover that used to nest at Corcoran Lagoon Beach. In fact, it had a nest as recently as 2002. And that's the snowy plover, and that's another endangered species like the tidewater goby fish. And the plovers have come back occasionally to Corcoran Lagoon Beach, but they have not nested there since 2002. It's our guess that the reason that they haven't nested there is because there is a great deal of public recreation going on now at that beach, a lot. How many people lived in the county in 2002, and how many people live in the county in 2018? The more human activity, the less wildlife. So that's not to say that we don't want people to be at Corcoran Lagoon Beach. It just means that if we're going to be managing in part for the snowy plover, then we might have to cordon off just a little bit more expand the nesting area. This particular, go back to her just for a minute. This particular one, I did talk with the avian ecologist at Pointe Blue, and she has jewelry on. You know, when they ban birds, they put the different colored bands. That's called their jewelry. Well, her jewelry identified her as a bird that has not had successful eggs. So she's laid eggs, but she's not been successful. But we don't care. She's there, and what her presence there says is, this is habitat. Habitat, habitat, habitat. Okay. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Yeah, when you said that, I was thinking, that's known as the dog beach, and I'm wondering whether dogs are part of the problem?
Yeah. Actually, that one isn't a dog beach.
Well, that whole,
Santa Maria.
yeah, that whole stretch.
Yeah,
is where
people do
walk.
let their dogs off leash
Yeah.
there, and of course, that's part of the problem. But I was hoping not to get into that. There is a separate group from.
Yeah, I don't want
us.
to get political, I just.
Yeah, no,
wondering
no,
if
it's
dogs
not that
were
it's
part of the
political,
problem.
it's not that it's political. Yes, it's definitely a part of the problem, and the birds are definitely harassed and disrupted and sometimes killed by unleashed dogs. So the law says you can take your dogs to the beach, but they have to be leashed. Unfortunately, many people violate that law. And there's another group that's working really hard to try and get that law enforced. Yes?
I know you said you didn't want to talk about this, but is there any control of that? Or does anybody ever go down there and police that? Because I always see dogs off leash, they're chasing birds.
Yes, yeah. Well, unfortunately, Animal Services has 4 officers for the entire county of Santa Cruz. And they have been encouraged to spend more time down at the beach, but it's difficult to have that happen.
I know people that have gotten tickets there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed there's fencing
Yeah,
at Sea
quite a
Pride
few people
Beach
got tickets
for the
there.
nesting areas. Is it a problem not, do we have fencing here or that's too expensive?
Well, we're going to get to that. Thank
Oh,
you for
sorry.
asking. Yes. Let's
I
talk
got
about, let's,
one question regarding that last statement. It says in regards to like the dogs and the threat they are actively posing towards the wildlife there, it says in '84, 175 birds were recorded. What's the current number in regards to, has any died off or has it increased that number?
100 and, what does it say?
This is 175, back in 1984, 175 different species.
Oh, yes, thank you for mentioning that. There are still 175 species who are at Corcoran Lagoon Beach, and the shoreline at some point in time most years.
Okay.
We have a bird count at Christmas time, and sometimes the numbers will be up, sometimes they'll be down. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We're not just talking about a few species of birds, we're talking about over 150 species of birds. So,
That's amazing, it's a small area.
lagoon formation, ocean, sandbar, lagoon, okay? Let's go ahead, Michael. This is seen the other way. It's a seasonal formation of a sandbar which backs up the lagoon. This is normal, natural, and good. It used to happen at Woods Lagoon, but now we have the harbor. It used to happen at Schwann's Lagoon, or Schwann Lake, but there is also a road that bifurcates the lagoon. It used to happen up and down the coast of California. And these lagoons are really incubators for fish, baby fish and they're called fry. And it doesn't matter if it's tidewater goby, steelhead trout. There are several other species of fish in the lagoon. But the reason that they're there is because they spend a lot of time in that lagoon eating lower on the food chain than them. They get fat, they mature, and then when the right circumstances present themselves, which are our winter rains, the sandbar is naturally breached and the little fatty fry head out to sea to do their next stage of their development. What's our next? Sometimes, in terms of the lagoon, it will cover the entire beach. Okay? But you see, the birds always know where to go, don't they? They follow the water. They just go where the water is. Okay? Now, why did I have that tidewater goby there? Oh,
Because it's important.
yes.
Birds.
The
But
lagoon formation.
yeah, well, I just kind of explained why it's important. Yeah, let's go ahead and go forward on our next slide, yeah. Okay, so here's those circumstances I'm talking about. You know, the so-called king tides in January. It breaks that sandbar. See this? It breaks it naturally, lets all that out. Those birds are really smart. They know there are goodies and munchies coming out of that lagoon, and they're going to be right there and get them. And they're not bothered at all by the ocean waves. But so that's a good description of how that happens. Okay. Now, the birds are real smart, but the apologies to the road builders, but not to those who maintain the roads, Barry. Every year, we don't have pictures from 2014, but it happened too. Let's go ahead. This is what happens to East Cliff Drive. Every year, the lagoon wants to be there. It wants to be there. Go ahead. This is taken way low. There's the roadway sign. This was in, yeah, go ahead. This is in 2016. It was an amazing movement of all of this stuff. Go ahead.
We need a bridge.
And of course, oh yeah, and signs, you know, they get washed around. And then Public Works has to go out and clean up the mess. Okay.
They're the only ones.
Garbage pails that were filled with plastic bags of dog feces end up in the lagoon. One of the things that we do is that we monitor this. Sometimes we even take them out. There's a friend right there. Retrieve them for Public Works because we can get there before they can. I will say this, every time we've ever sent a report to the county, they are appreciative, thank you, we'll get to it, and they get to it unless we get to it before them. So this is this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Look at that. Again, the birds don't care. Where's the water going? Look where the water is. This sign ended up disappearing. See? Hey, I've got a new lagoon. Okay. Now, here's a proposal that we, 2 years ago, sent to the Director of Public Works, John Presley, and to the Director of Parks, and I think I sent it to Supervisor Leopold also. And we said, you know, every year we deal with this problem. It costs a lot of money. Moving sand, you have to put it there, you have to take it, traffic can't go by. Why not create, instead of, here we are, why not make a causeway? It doesn't have to be a bridge. A bridge is very expensive. A bridge would cost millions and millions of dollars. But a causeway, you know what a causeway is? It's sort of like a bridge on stilts. And that would allow the waters, that would allow traffic to continue on the road. Public Works wouldn't have to come out and move sand from here to there. We wouldn't have to be picking up garbage pails in the lagoon. None of that would have to happen. Traffic could continue. And this could function, once again, more naturally. So the first response was, this is a good idea, Jean. I'd like to ask you to put your hand down, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm not going to call on you. I've got to get a little bit more said here. Okay. Public Works Director John Presley said, I like your idea. He says, yes, we've thought about this a lot. Unfortunately, we don't have any money. And that was 2 years ago. And so he said, how about if we talk again about this at the end of the year? And I said, okay, I'll be patient. So the end of the year came. And so anyway, it's been 2 years of very cordial, respectful nudging. And we're going to keep at it, okay? The county now is in better shape than it was 2 years ago financially. It's getting some more money. It's getting Measure D money. And so we're going to keep working on this idea. Okay. So, we're doing okay on time. So what else do we do? This was a flyer that we produced when we were trying to just give people an idea of how you can take care of something close to home that you care about. And this is one of the things that we do. Go ahead. We also monitor the lagoon breaching. Remember the...
God bless all here. Excuse my intrusion upon your time.
God bless you.
Thank you. Where we had the natural breaches, what'll happen is that some people don't like that lagoon because it keeps them from getting out onto the beach, or they don't want to go around. There's all kinds of reasons, and so they'll start to dig a trench to artificially breach that lagoon before it's time. And we have, you know, as you can read in the sign, this is put up by NOAA. In fact, NOAA put that sign up after we contacted them. We contacted NOAA because NOAA manages the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. We contacted California Department of Fish and Wildlife because they have jurisdiction over wildlife on this beach and in the water. And they came out and they put up new signs. I'm gonna see them, let's see them. This one also, yeah, they did this one together. And each of these pictures are different attempts to breach the lagoon in 4 different years. And again, all of this stuff is up on our website. If I'm going too fast tonight, you can review all of this again. Not only do we have eyes, well, I don't have eyes there every day. I live on 7th Avenue, but there are people who do. Not only, and we have a phone tree. And not only do we monitor with our eyes, we, Friends of Corcoran Lagoon Beach found out that UCSC had two graduate students who wanted to buy cameras that would work 24/7 and focus on all, I think there were 5 streams in the county. Well, San Lorenzo River, Corcoran Lagoon, I think Schwann Lagoon, the one at Rio Del Mar, and one more. And they went to the County Fish and Wildlife Commission and applied for grant money to do that. And we were at that meeting, and when we discovered that, I sent out an email and I said, how about if Friends of Corcoran Lagoon come up, it was gonna cost $200 for each camera. And I said, how about if we pool our money and let's buy the camera for Corcoran Lagoon Beach? And we did, and the students came out and installed that. It's not my house, and I won't tell you whose house it is. But this has given them information because they want to study lagoon breaching mechanisms. And we were actually able to use that camera one time to identify some perpetrators of an artificial breach. Okay, what else we do? You mentioned the Live Oak Library exhibit. Yes, Barry.
How about, you're talking about Lagoon Breach, how about when they were damming up the San Lorenzo for the last few years? The guy was damming it up and it was flooding Ocean Street, it was tearing everything up, and that was totally unnatural. And I told the guys, because he walked down when I was looking at it, like, why don't you just let this thing go? It's gonna come out over there. No, I want it here, is all he said. And they build a sand wall from past the boardwalk all the way to the point. They dammed that thing up.
Who is they?
It was Fish and Game or somebody, it was somebody official. And I thought, you know, this is not natural at all.
Well, yeah, the sandbar at the mouth of the San Lorenzo River is different than this, and there are some extenuating circumstances there, and it's very, very different than this.
Yeah.
I don't know who was doing that. I know that I know that the
probably
city
3
of,
years ago.
Yeah, I know the city of Santa Cruz and the Seaside Company had to have a permit in consultation with the California Coastal Commission, and who can we send them to for information on that? You know, I'll talk to you afterward
That's fine.
about that. Yes.
That's
I
Okay.
know their basement was getting flooded.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the Seaside Company, yes, they built on a floodplain, didn't they? They built right next to the river, on a floodplain. And why is my basement flooding?
They apartments stood each other 100 feet.
Yes, yes.
I got a little feedback on that. Well, first of all, that's an osprey. Okay.
It is an osprey.
The bird.
Yeah, don't I
Yeah.
have osprey there?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
They come
okay.
in on occasion, they'll eat a fish and then they'll leave. But with regards to San Lorenzo River, I talked to a Fish and Game guy.
Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife
Yeah.
guy, who was dealing with the bridge from San Lorenzo Park to connect the south side of the levee. Okay, anyways,
Yeah.
I talked to him about them damming the river up And he said that the city is the political motivator to damming up the river, one, for aesthetic reasons in the summertime, to have more water in the river to make it look aesthetically pleasing, and also number two, to lower the homeless incursion into the river depression when it's low river flow. And the fishing game has allowed them a certain take on the salmon, the king salmon and steelhead that spawn during that time. And it's totally, in my opinion, it's not environmentally good for the
No, it's
fish.
not natural at all.
yeah,
But for
I'm-
the city, they can do that because they have political clout, and they.
I do know that the Sandbar is part of the San Lorenzo River system, and
But it's a
the
natural
river-
event like this.
yeah, the
Yeah,
river
it
is.
reaches on
yeah.
when it happens, not when humans come in and dam it up to flood it back to make the river look full.
Yeah, I don't know, I'd have to, yeah,
But they
okay.
did it.
Who did you speak with?
His name was Kittleson.
Oh, Gary
Officer-
Kittleson.
Officer Kittleson.
I know Gary Kittleson, and
Yeah.
he told you that they did that
He
to make
says
it
they
look
have
nice?
permission to do that.
To make it, no, he said they did that to make it look nice and
He
to
says
keep
they
the
have
home-
permission to do that.
Yes.
They do it. They've been doing it for years.
Yeah,
Okay, he says 3 years back, they've been doing it consistently for the last 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
for those reasons.
For those
To
reasons.
raise the river in the summertime for the tourists. It's a tourist town. Okay,
Well, that's
that
interesting. I'm gonna-
Aesthetically,
And
thank
about
you for
the
telling me
homeless.
that, because I'm gonna look into that. I
yeah,
don't like
talk
the
to
sound of
Kittleson,
that.
he'll tell you so.
Thank you.
And then one more thing, on this lagoon,
I have no.
there's going to be a lot of homeless trash around there. You're talking about a garbage can coming down, that's a bummer. There's going to be a lot of homeless trash around there.
Yeah.
They throw everything in their cistern into water without a concern.
Well, yeah, you're talking about Corcoran Lagoon now?
Yes.
Yeah, well, one of the other things of what we do, we're getting there. I don't think we put the pictures of the trash, did we? Yeah, we pick up trash too, yes.
Yeah.
Very, very aware of that. Okay, so the library exhibit, in the and have all of you been to the Live Oak Library? Oh, it's a jewel. It's a jewel. You'll just have, even if you don't go to see the bird show, the Live Oak Library is a jewel in the system. It really is. But go ahead and these are two separate pictures. So we have the Canada geese are always there in the library because the library was built right next to the lagoon and they have a lagoon theme. But we have pictures throughout, oh, there's that one, throughout, and there's the green heron, and on the shelves behind the counter. And again, one of our goals is we feel like if children can be educated about wildlife, if it means something to them, then they will care about it. And when they grow up, or even as children, that they will respect other life, all life, and take care. So we always have, in a library exhibit, this is a case in the children's section where we put the story of the killdeer. They're fascinated with the killdeer. This year we didn't do the killdeer story because we did it 3 years in a row, but if you go to the library, and it will be up until February 27th, so more than 3 weeks, you'll find 2 specimens that are on loan from the Museum of Natural History that are in this case also with other birds. Okay, well, remember I mentioned the ugly wheelie bins? We took this picture and then we sent the picture and we said, you know, can't we do a little bit better than that? So they did put out new, clean garbage bins. These signs were not there when we first started working. And we said we ought to have signs, and these signs say, no fires on the beach, dogs must be on leash. But you know, people don't read. They either don't read these signs or they read them and ignore them. So now what we're working on with the new supervisor of maintenance at the county parks is to come up with a nicer looking sign, one that will catch the eye, one that won't just be this, that people might stop and look at and understand. And even if we catch only 20% more of those who ignore this and do whatever they want to do on the beach, that's a gain. That's a gain for wildlife. And okay, and then something else we did, we noticed that in trying to get across, we'd have Mama Goose and her babies, and there were ducks being run over on East Cliff Drive. People speed there. It's posted 25 miles per hour, but they tend to think of that as a minimum speed limit.
Oh, they need speed bumps there.
So, there's the new wheelie bins. See? Looking nice. So again, we said, how much county will it cost to put up some duck crossing signs? And they gave us what it would cost. It was $325 signs plus the installation. It takes labor to put them in. And we raised the money and we got the duck crossing signs, which helped. Another thing I'd like to point out, go back, Michael. See that porta toilet? That's a seasonal porta potty. And it used to be blue, and it looked so garish. You know, you'd be coming by, and there's the white sand, and yeah, and this blue thing.
Like the ocean.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, this is a really pretty picture, and it makes the blue match the ocean. I think that looks prettier than that, but that was the idea. And so, every year, all we have to do is remind Gretchen in Public Works, Gretchen, it's porta potty time, let's make sure it's beige. And she writes back, okay, Jean, will do, and we get the beige for it.
How about green?
Pardon me?
How about green?
Yeah. The other thing that we do is we actually, and we have coordinated with county parks and California Fish and Wildlife and the folks in environmental health department, because they oversee some of this. And so we always, as soon as the birds start acting like it's time, then we have signs that we put out, educational signs, and these stakes. There's no plastic involved at all. This is kind of a hemp rope here. Go ahead. And then this is how we do it. And it's very interesting that people will basically respect that cordon. They'll stop. So we'll see people out there, big burly guys, right, looking for the baby killdeers. And it draws the eye. This is that Boronia. So not only does protecting the nesting season help the birds, but it also saves this, because otherwise everybody would be coming from East Cliff Drive and walking all over this. I mean, they just come in and they walk. And even if their dogs are leashed, they have 3 dogs and they're all walking all over there. So it's just a tiny portion of the beach. This is an exclosure. This basically, as soon as a mama is on her nest, then we put up an exclosure, and this helps to keep this protected even more. It doesn't harm the birds. The birds aren't trapped in there. There's an opening. They know how to get in and get out. There was some concern that it would be waving a flag to a crow. Crows are smart. Hey, exposure, go get the eggs. That has not happened. We haven't had problems with raccoons or any other urban wildlife. They've been very successful. Okay. And see, there's mom in there, happy. And other babies, 2 babies, they're so cute. Then some of you were able to get, I didn't have enough of them because County Parks Department is printing up a whole bunch more. But we were contacted for our help with, this is a brochure that was put out by the county of Santa Cruz. And it was U.S. Fish and Wildlife funded. They got money from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And it was written and produced by Kristen Kittleson, who works at Environmental Health. Yes, there's the Kittleson name, that's Gary's wife.
Okay.
And Sierra Ryan in Environmental Health, and then the County of Santa Cruz. And we were thanked for our input on this. So we kind of collaborated with this, but this is not our brochure. And it has everything you'd want to know about, and we always try and keep these in at the Live Oak Library. So if you don't have one, who wants one that didn't get one?
If you reprint them, put a date on it, please.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have a question too.
Okay,
Well, if you reprint.
so we have another question?
Yes,
You can leave that there.
during the summertime, I've noticed, I go by there occasionally, and it was bone dry for a spell. And
The
I was
lagoon.
worried about, is that a natural occurrence, or is that an artificial
Yeah.
breach?
No, it's natural in the sense that, keep in mind that where we live, in this county, on this coast, Northern California, has basically, for the short term, and I'm talking several thousand years, has a Mediterranean climate. And a Mediterranean climate means that you have summer drought. It doesn't rain in the summer, does it?
No.
And the winter mistral. In southern France, they're called the mistral, the winter winds. And so it's normal and natural for everything in this kind of a climate pattern to be dry. So what happens is when we have several droughts, in a row, and groundwater has not been recharged, then there isn't even enough flow to keep the lagoon.
Even after a record rainfall?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But when you see that down, when you see the lagoon water down, that means that the sandbar has been breached, the lagoon has drained, and what happened in January, or January 21st, that last flooding, where I showed the last flooding, what happened with that is the lagoon, the sandbar broke, it was time, and within 3 days, the sandbar started to reform, started to fill in again. And so when that sandbar comes back again, then the water that's coming out of the Rodeo Creek watershed gets trapped in the lagoon. That lagoon has vegetation that has adapted to that salinity and that drought over eons. So it may look bad, but it's really, really good, healthy habitat. So we're there, it's just 7:25. We've actually finished what we wanted to present to you. So shall we do some, another 10 or 15 minutes of questions? And
I
yeah,
have one more comment.
sure.
The fact that this place, Causeway would be nice, but that's a big deal in the future, and they say in 2 years of bad is coming for our recession. So whatever. But the fact that it has a bridge is a super plus. This is a lot more organic than Twin Lakes or 26th Avenue. Is there any talk of changing those to a straight, some sort of bridge setup rather than that weird cement gauge system they have?
At where?
Twin Lakes and 26th? Because those are not near as organic as this one is.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a beautiful lagoon.
Yes, it is. I don't know. I don't know what the plans are. We haven't focused on that. Our focus has been on Corcoran Lagoon, but wouldn't it be wonderful? In fact, I think the county eventually, if they're looking at what adapting to sea level rise, up and down, up and down. Of course, we used to be underwater, clear to Scotts Valley, millions of years ago, so I'm not worried about sea level rise, but in terms of adaptation to that rising sea level, it really makes sense to do that, Barry, everywhere, at every one of these crossings. Because yes, it's going to take money, capital investment, but look at the money that it's going to save afterward. You always invest assuming you're going to get a return. And even things like emergency vehicles, fire trucks and paramedics and ambulances needing to get to the residents and people, and they have to stop and turn around and go out and take another route. So there's lots of reasons to do that. And yes, we're coming into a recession, but we're going to still keep plugging for that Causeway, and we'll update. We have that on our website now that we're doing that, don't you? We'll update that. If any of you are interested in any of the things that you've seen tonight, you can Google for Friends of Corcoran Lagoon Beach. We're the only one, you know. Just Google. We're not friends.com or anything like that. It's difficult to give you the URL, but just go Google Friends of Corcoran Lagoon Beach, click on it, go to the website. And if you'd like to be included on, we have about maybe 3 or 4 times a year at the most, a little electronic newsletter. There's a contact us link on our website, and you can ask to be put on that. And when we send out our newsletters, we send it out to undisclosed recipients, so your email stays private. Not everybody's going to see your email address. Yeah. Yes?
Who would be responsible for constructing the causeway, and what would it cost?
The responsible entity would probably, thanks for coming. The responsible entity, my guess would be, since this is county in the 1st district, it would be County Public Works Department.
Thank you.
And they would be the ones who would probably, the county would probably, actually Public Works wouldn't build it. The county would probably put out a request for proposals for somebody, Granite Rock, somebody else. And when I first wrote to the director 2 years ago about doing this, I said, you know, I'm going to guess that we're looking at $5 million. That was just off the top of my head. And he said, yeah, you're probably about right. And it probably would cost about $5 million. You just don't do anything for peanuts anymore. It's a long process. It has to be done right. There have to be permits from the California Coastal Commission, have to go through all kinds of meetings, and then build it. So I imagine that it would cost that.
So couldn't they propose a bond to pay for the construction and then to be paid back by the savings that the causeway is giving us?
Well, that's a good idea. The county now, during the Great Recession, the county was in dire straits. It did not have very much money, and it was in debt. The county made a decision in the last 5 years that they had to get out of that situation and that they had to start developing a reserve. They needed to have a reserve. And they built up the reserve, and they got a new credit rating, a AAA credit rating, which means that the county can borrow money now at a lower interest rate than they had before. So yes, they could, and I don't know if a public bond, a bond would work, in terms of vote of the people to ask the county to purchase, to invest that money to do that.
Could they borrow the money so that they could construct the causeway?
Well, I think they probably could. I think they probably could. It would be a matter of will they think that that's a good investment of money, or will they want to do 5 other things? But that's a good suggestion, and we'll just keep asking them.
But with the savings that the causeway will bring,
Yeah.
how long would it take for those savings to pay back the cost of the causeway?
Well, that's a cost benefit analysis, and somebody would have to look at that. Yeah. Just a second, her first name. Oh, she said you first.
Oh,
I didn't,
Yes.
so I thought you were pointing to him.
No,
then.
Yeah, first. Well, one of you.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Oh, okay.
So the causeway, would it would you be able to walk along? Now you can walk along.
Oh,
People can walk along.
it would be, basically, it would be a raised roadway. So, and with bicycle lanes and sidewalks and,
I see.
yes, yes. So that everybody, it would be exactly what it is now, it just would be raised to allow the lagoon waters underneath. And you'd still be able to go down onto the beach and and the little nature trail that takes you from East Cliff out to Portola along the lagoon. Yes.
Well, I was just going to comment, your photo of the roadway, you showed a couple bikers, and I bike that route a lot because it's very nice going out to Pleasure Point.
Yes.
And I go there a lot, and what you see, not when the water's not there, there's a lot of sand. And I don't know how dangerous it is for me, but it is a hazard for bicyclists because there's generally sand near the base of that roadway, so I have to swing out into the traffic because at 20 miles an hour you don't want to go through some sand, or even at 5 miles an hour. So there's a point you could send to the
Actually,
commissioner. and
that's
say
an
it's a safety
excellent
issue.
point, and what that makes me think of is we need to bring another county entity into this discussion, and that would be the Regional Transportation Commission, which has a bike
Yeah,
committee.
There you go.
And if we could get the Regional Transportation Commission, as we'd need to get a list of supporters of this idea.
Part of
Thank
the
you.
corridor study. You got a
Yes,
fourth
there you
corridor.
go. A fourth corridor. Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Could you ask
yeah,
them to
but we have-
slow traffic down there too? When you get the regional transportation people? It's
Have
hard
them
to
slow
zoom
down?
through that. Oh,
Speed
yeah,
bumps.
it's hard to
oh,
walk
it's
there.
awful, it's
Awful,
awful.
isn't it?
And, you
Yeah.
know, I don't drive, but when I am in my
So
little
it's
car,
not you.
yeah, but the best thing that any of you can do is when you are driving on that road,
Go 25.
stay within the speed limit. That's 25 is the point that you don't go beyond. Hi, guys. 25 is the number, the limit, the point beyond which you go. So stay within that. You know, they'll be behind you and they'll be doing this, but you just go ahead because then you're
Makes you
acting
feel
like a
good.
speed bump. Yeah. And I promise to do the same thing when I'm on your street. She was first and then you.
Well, first of all, I want to second, I was biking yesterday and I had to go out into traffic to go around the sand. So I want to second that. What occurred to me is they did all those improvements at Pleasure Point. That must have cost a whole lot of money. And if they could do that, I don't see why they couldn't do the same thing for Corcoran Lagoon.
Good night. Thanks. Well, the Pleasure Point project was done with redevelopment agency money.
Oh, and there is.
And as you know, there is no redevelopment agency anymore, so.
And now they're putting it into Twin Lakes.
Right.
The
Yes,
harbor.
the last
bit of it.
redevelopment project is the one that's happening down near the harbor for the Twin Lakes. Yes,
What's to say with all the sand that's moving around that the causeway won't be sand filled?
oh, that's a good point.
Underneath the causeway?
Sand
Yes.
underneath the causeway.
But
There's a lot of
the idea is with the raised road, the lagoon, the outflow would not be restricted to the place where it is now with the bridge. The outflow would be able to move back and forth underneath the causeway and remove that sand, which is what normally happens in a lagoon ecosystem.
There's a lot of sand.
There's a lot of sand and there's a lot of water to move it.
That's true, that one slide that you saw with the sand on the road, on the other side of the K-rail, a lot of that was windblown also. And so it just goes over there and ends up on the road. If it was windblown under a causeway, it wouldn't accumulate. And the tidal action would, because remember, there's a lot of tidal action too, high tide, low tide.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you. Yeah. Okay, well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, thanks for coming. And thanks for being our experimental audience.